This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about Final Fantasy XVI officially coming to PC, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle or the Freaky Circle getting officially announced for PlayStation 5, Bloodborne PC making significant progress on the emulation front, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 46. I am your host, the man who died more times to invisible pathways than to the boss at the end of them, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who was recently leaked, then officially revealed as coming to PlayStation 5, Justin, better known as I Am Zeracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
It hasn't been bad. I've been, the new responsibilities for work that I mentioned last week, those have been, well, shortly after starting that, or at least going through my training, like, more stuff has been coming in, so I've been adapting to that, but, you know, I've had a couple questions for the person who used to handle the stuff. I've been talking to her, but, like, I'm understanding it, and so I think that maybe within a week or two, I should be able to have a full grasp on things. So that's good on that end. Yesterday, which would be Tuesday, I went and saw a friend just to hang out with him and stuff, play some games, and also help him out with some things with his Steam Deck because he's had issues with his Xbox controllers connecting to it, but after testing it and trying to even also test it on my my Steam Deck, I think it's the issue he's having is really just a compatibility issue with my Xbox controllers on Linux because just like certain things. I mean, it works fine wired, but trying to use it over Bluetooth, it's just not responding at all. So that's just my guess there. But yeah, and I mean, also he's been talking about this for a while, but he also wanted to sort of get some final thoughts from me about like what type of PC to build, because after getting the Steam Deck, playing that for a while, he is interested in getting into PC gaming.
Excellent.
So he just asked me about like, you know, what type of parts to get, because I mean, he's going to get a pre-built system, but he was just like asking about like what things to look for, like, you know, how do I know I'm not spending too much for a PC and stuff like that. So I was just like saying, here's what, like, for your case scenario, here's something that could work for you. And, you know, also what's within your budget too. That's right. Like another thing altogether as well. So just doing that, like he said, maybe he'll do something within a month or so, but we'll see on that front. But yeah, definitely had a good time seeing him.
That's good. Yeah, I actually can point him in the direction of my wife's brother-in-law, who I've gotten all my PC parts through, and he's helped me build my PC in the past. Great resource because he's very knowledgeable. You know, honest guy. I'm small business, so you're supporting, you know, a small business. Just like this guy really knows his stuff, and he's a great resource and can really help to customize, and he's not going to rip the person off. So if your friend is looking for that, I can send you the website to go to contact him, and yeah, it's well worth it. I mean, I know he's definitely busy this time of year, especially because he also is like the head of IT for a community college, and August is when they go back to school, so he's probably pretty swamped at the moment. But I mean, I could let him know, hey, there's going to be requests coming your way if your friend wants to go through him, and it could end up being a really good resource to go through.
Yeah, I'll definitely let him know about that, because I'll let him know, because I mean, not certain like how soon he wants it, so I
Right.
don't know if that would like conflict with your friend. I don't know if that would conflict with him as far as like, I mean, I know you said like August, and like
Yeah.
probably when he buys his PC, it might be maybe sometime in late September, maybe even October. But I'll see. I'll definitely ask him and see what he what if he wants to like go in that direction or not. But
Right.
thank you though. Thank you. I'll definitely pass that on to him.
For sure. Well, as far as my week goes, it's been good. Definitely have had been tired a lot, but it's not because I've been like necessarily overly busy. I mean, Thursday and Friday were very busy. Had a lot of stuff to do between cleaning and um, other various preparation stuff I had to do before my sister got here, and then she got in on she got in on Sunday afternoon, but was able to basically get the entire day off for Saturday, which was really nice. And apart from doing like some cooking on Sunday, basically took the day off, and we've had lots of family time, so that's been good. But I've also had lots of gaming time, which has been great. Well, I mean, technically both have been great, but it's just, in general, the family time. Like I see my family reasonably often. It's just my younger sister that I don't see that often, but it's been pretty cool because her oldest daughter is 3, but she's close enough to my daughter's age to where they've been sharing a room, and so they've been playing together a lot. And my niece is even though she's 2 years younger than my daughter, almost 2 years younger, she is almost the same height. She's like an inch shorter because my brother-in-law is like 6'4", and
Oh wow.
I'm 5'11", so it's like he's very tall. I mean, my sister's only like I think 5'6", something like that. But so their daughter's already pretty tall for her age, and of course my daughter is, on top of the fact that she doesn't have particularly tall parents, she's also very petite. So it's like, but it's just kind of funny, and those two playing together has been really great. I know my daughter especially has really enjoyed having someone right around her age, because she's basically, well, apart from my younger sister's daughters, all of the rest of her cousins are older than her, and so she's the youngest of all of them, and none of them are really close to her age. I mean, the closest is my middle son, so it's just kind of like, I know she has a hard time with that sometimes, but yeah, so it's been pretty cool having them over, and the baby's cute. Thankfully, as cute as she is, I'm also it's like for all the aspects I enjoy about babies, there's also lots of reasons why I'm glad I don't have any more babies myself, because it's like, they're super cute, but it's also a lot more work, and my kids are at the point where they can do a lot of stuff on their own because they're old enough. But anyway, all that being said, what have you been playing this past week?
All right. So these will not, obviously I won't have footage for these just because this was at my friend's house, but we played some Streets of Rage 4, and that was the first time I ever played that game. In fact, I originally went to get that game on the Nintendo Switch, but I never picked up a copy. So that was my first time playing the game. We ran through the entire story campaign, beat it. It was a bit difficult because we were playing on a hard mode, but it was pretty fun. I will say though, the tutorial was really the roughest thing for me, or at least trying to learning through some of the more advanced stuff, because it was acting like it was a 2D fighting game because you had to pull out all these combos.
Right.
I mean, maybe the older Streets of Rage games were like this. I don't know, but I never expected that in a beat 'em up type of game before. But it was still fun. That was definitely a good game. In fact, I even went ahead later on and just like put it on my Steam wishlist because I was like, even though I beat the game here playing with him, I think it's a fun game that I would like to go back and play it myself. So I did that as well. So that's definitely something I could recommend someone playing. Also, we played Metal Slug, I think 2.
Okay.
That was a game he had on, I think, PS Plus or something like that. So that was kind of rough because there was a lot of lag going on, and neither of us knew why. Considering the fact that it's like an old Neo Geo game, and just like, I mean, it was fun when it was running well and smoothly, but then there were like sudden drops where the frame rate just chugged, and that was not good at all. And the last thing we played was a game called, I think, Plate Up, or Plate Something Up.
Okay.
It's sort of like a restaurant management type of game where you can either play it by yourself or you can play it in co-op mode, but you pretty much just run the restaurant where you have a menu, you prepare the food, serve it to the customers, bus the tables, clean the dishes and stuff like that, and you have to manage all that while making sure that your customers are patient enough and don't wait too long.
Yeah.
So that was chaotic, but that was pretty fun. But the one game that I played by myself, this is pretty much the sole game that I've played this past week, was more Halls of Torment. And the reason why is because when I last played the game before last week, I had about 12 achievements left to get. And something kept nagging me about, go back, get the rest of the achievements. And so I did that. I got through a good portion of them, and I only had 4 left. And 2 of those 4 were ones that I have been struggling constantly with, repeatedly over and over. And I've been using a guide that tells you what type of builds to make, so that way you can optimize them for going through a run. The problem is trying to get 2 of them, because you have to deal a certain type of damage, or you have to deal a certain amount of damage to enemies in order for, and you also have to do that like a certain number of times. Like you have to like deal 20 stacks of electric damage, I think 1,000 times to enemies. And you also have to like build up that. And the problem is you have to do that while playing on hard mode for a game, for a level. And it's just really annoying. And actually there was one thing that I completely messed up, is the fact that there were potions in the game that you make. And I got some potions before that I made, and I did my stuff there. But the problem is that there were 2 potions that I thought nothing much of them, because I assumed they were similar to the ones that I had already unlocked. But these ones are very crucial because because you have 2 types of, or you have, when you get new abilities, they can have different, one tier can have 3 different traits, and you choose which one you want. And then after that, you can't select them anymore. But with one of the potions, you actually get to hold one of them to the side so that we can actually select 2 traits for that one ability. So once I unlocked that made things a whole lot easier. And then the other potion actually allowed you to double the effectiveness of a particular trait. So that also was beneficial as well. That being said, though, there's one last achievement that has been bugging me and I still cannot get. And I'm going to try to get that eventually. Like, I was so close to getting it earlier this evening, because I was actually playing that before I started getting things set up. And I ran out of time. And so there was no way I was going to be able to defeat like 13 enemies. That's all I needed, was 13 enemies to get that achievement. So I'm gonna have to come back sometime later and get that done. But yeah, that's all I've been playing.
Yeah, good stuff. I hate it though when you're stuck on like just getting one achievement and you just can't get it. It's like, I still have that one single achievement in Outer Wilds that of course I haven't tried in quite a while, but every time that I boot it up, I'm like, okay, I'll give this another shot. Nope, can't do it. So eventually I'll get it. Maybe I'll try again during my next 24-hour stream. All right, so for what I've been playing, there's actually been quite a few different things. I mean, I guess technically it's really only like 4 games, apart from the Lego games I play with my boys. But I will mention regarding the Lego games, of course, I still don't have any footage recorded. Played some more Lego Star Wars with my middle son, and I have to say, the one thing that I really don't like about these older Lego games, or at least this one in particular, is because it has no split screen. So when you can do multiplayer, but if one person is lagging behind, you can't move forward. You're like stuck. You can't move forward any further. Right. And there's a section near the end of the Phantom Menace where you're having to jump up platforms to get up to Darth Maul so that you can chase him down and fight him. And my son, unfortunately, is not very good at the jumping sometimes. And so if he would fall off, then he would have to, move backwards in order to get back up to a platform where he could jump back up. But the problem is that then that would automatically pull me off of the ledge, and then I'd fall all the way down and have to start back over. And it's just really, really annoying. But yeah, we did finish Phantom Menace. And we actually I think I did 4 levels for each of them. So yeah, we did that. Another thing is that it took me way too long to figure out. So there's the pod racing section. It took me way too long to figure out that you could push forward on the stick to go faster. And so we went through the race probably 20 times, just not able to beat freaking Sebulba. And so we tried a couple different things. First, we tried just reducing it to just one player, thinking, okay, maybe if we have just one player, it'll make it a little bit easier. Still was having issues. Looked it up, and then finally it's you have to press forward on the stick too. You don't just move side to side. It doesn't automatically make you go the fastest. It's oh, that makes a difference. And then it's it didn't take me long at all to beat him. But yeah. It's always interesting though. Sometimes just the solutions to the puzzles are really obtuse. And I'm a puzzle guy, but these Lego games, sometimes the solutions are just okay. I guess I see how that works and it makes sense, but at the same time, it's just not as clear as, I don't know, most puzzle games. It's usually not that hard. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But I did also play, and we finished years 1 through 4 of Harry Potter. So with my oldest son, we'd been working through that. We finished year 4, and he wants to do all of the to go back to the levels and get all the different checklist items. So we started doing that a little bit. We only basically went through the first 2 levels, and we're still missing one thing from each one. So I need to look up where to find those, but there's that. Then, as I mentioned last week, I did get my physical copy of Persona 4 Golden for the Switch, which I've only very briefly turned on. I played for maybe, I think, 10 minutes total. And that was, it would have been a little bit longer, but basically I played long enough to where I could do some moving around and stuff just to see what the frame rate was like. And it appears to be 60 frames per second. It's possible that I'm completely wrong on that. The easiest way for me to be able to tell will be when I play it on Steam Deck, and then looking at them side by side, I'll be able to tell whether or not it actually reaches 60. But there's no reason why it shouldn't, but at the same time, that hasn't stopped developers from doing lower frame rate just because. So but yeah, I didn't really play any of it other than just briefly testing it out, since I want to actually record the gameplay for the Vita, Switch, and Steam Deck versions. So let's see here. Then I decided. Well, so I tried playing some Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Footage I have is actually old footage here because I recorded some on Steam Deck. But for some reason, whenever I would try to export the video footage, Steam would crash on the Steam Deck, and it's just like it didn't matter how many times I tried it, I couldn't get the footage to export properly. So, I wasn't able to get the recent footage. I'm not done with the game. I did get past Gerbil, or whatever his name is, Gerbil, I guess, and got into the last area, and I think I got to either the last boss or maybe second to last boss. The person who was possessing Gerbil.
Okay.
I only attempted that fight once though, and I didn't do well on it, but I just got a little annoyed and decided to stop playing. But yeah, I'm hoping to try to finish that one up soon. Like right now, I know I'm still missing one room key because I got the Warhorse key in the final area. I was able to find it there, and I already had the Carpenter's key, so I'm still missing the Millionaire's key. I just haven't looked up where to find it, but yeah, I barely touched the game this week. It's just been, I kind of messed with it a little bit, I think on Saturday or Sunday, just very briefly before I played games with my boys. Probably Saturday. So yeah. But I did decide, just because I wanted something just completely different, I decided to jump into Abzu, go back to that, and because I figured I was probably a good chunk of the way through. I didn't expect it to be a long game anyway, but it had been several months since I last tried playing it, and I just played and I finished it. So I think it took me about 2 hours total to get through it. Pretty good game. It's it's basically very similar to like Journey and that sort of thing, where it's very much a very artistic kind of game. I mean, it definitely has like actual gameplay to it, even if it's mostly just swimming. So, I mean, like, I wouldn't quite call it a swimming simulator, even though that's definitely a big element of it. But yeah, I mean, pretty much if anyone who's ever played Journey would know what to expect, because it's basically the same kind of game. There's no combat or anything. It's just, you're going through the environments, you're solving like fairly simple puzzles, and it's a lot about movement and the artistry and stuff, and there's various things you do for achievements, which I don't have. I think I might have like half of the achievements after having finished the game. That was mostly just because I wasn't really sure what specifically to look for, and I really just was playing just because I felt like trying it out. But I was able to get a more consistent 60 frames per second on it, which was nice on the Steam Deck. And I think originally when I had played, I just hadn't quite messed around with the settings enough to figure that out, but this time I was able to. So it was 60 the majority of the time. I think I had a couple drops here and there, but it wasn't too bad. So there's that. And then the most obvious thing that I played a whole bunch of over the past week has been Dark Souls Remastered. So I went ahead and I continued going through New Londo Ruins. Was able to get to the place where you drain them, and then you can go down into further down into the ruins, and then go and face the boss in the abyss called the Four Kings. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen any footage of this boss fight before, because the fact that you had told me you were just basically in the New Londo ruins tells me that you probably have never faced them before. At least I'm assuming so.
I've never faced them before, but I am familiar with, like, I know the idea of the four boss fight, the Four Kings fight.
All right, so I very nearly beat them on my first try. I was super close. I got 3 of the 4 kings down, and I don't think I ran out of Estus flasks, but I did end up just... I think I just had bad timing and ended up getting killed with that while I was, probably about halfway through the 4th king, which was a bummer. And then I went in a second time, and like immediately after I got into the fight, one of them grabbed me and like sucked all my life out, and so that attempt didn't work. But then the third attempt, I was able to get through the fight without too much difficulty. It was definitely an interesting fight. The main thing is like the New Londo ruins. That whole section is just, it's interesting. It's not an area I enjoyed being in though, because of the ghosts. That really like, and of course just how dark it is there, definitely made it more challenging. But like the boss fight itself, what really wasn't bad, because the fact that I only died twice fighting them, and the fact that I almost beat them on my first try, whereas going through the ruins, dealing with the ghosts and some of the other enemies, I died a bunch of times. It's not like on the same scale as Ornstein and the Smough or anything, but it was still enough to where it was definitely annoying at times. I did find that there was a way to get back to the 4 kings a lot faster without having to go through as many enemies and such, which was nice when I found that out. But mostly just because it's like there's a bunch of enemies, and none of them are like particularly hard to kill, but it's more just that if they hit you, they hit pretty hard, and wanting to save the Estus flasks specifically for the boss fights, that I'm not wasting anything, even though I don't think I've actually had any situations since I got 20 of them that I've used all of them up in a fight. At least not unless I used them up on the way to... used up a good amount of them on the way to the fight, to a boss fight, so... There was that. But then I also went into the Painted World, and I didn't record any footage from this, but I did go through there and... once again died more times on my way to the boss than fighting the boss herself. I beat her in one try without really any difficulty at all. Though I don't think I managed to cut off her tail, unfortunately, which I was trying to do, because even if I wouldn't necessarily use the weapon, it's still something that goes towards an achievement. So there's that at least. But yeah, I beat Crossbreed Priscilla. And then after that, I went into the Duke's Archives, which is just out of on Orlando. I'm trying to remember. I think, oh yes, that's right. So in order to get to this section of on Orlando, you have to first beat the 4 kings, and then the Lord vessel that you get there, you get transported to what is the area where you'll eventually face Gwyn the Cinder, the final boss. And but you have to place the Lord vessel there, and once you've placed that, then that opens up the doors that let you into the Duke's Archives, which lets you get into after you get through the Duke's Archives, you get to go down into the Crystal Cave, where you face Seath the Scaleless. So Seath the Scaleless was not really a difficult boss fight. The main thing that made it challenging was, more than anything, going through those caves, the crystal caves, because of the invisible platforms you have to deal with. So this is something where I don't have the footage recorded, but there is basically there's a few different invisible paths. A lot of them are just straight shot. You just walk along a straight path. If you know where it is, it's not too hard to get across. Like basically there's snow that falls, and it like hits the invisible paths. so that you know, okay, there's a path there. And so I was basically, working on going through that, but so a lot of the paths are straight, but of course, because they're invisible, you can't, because there's all these invisible paths, you can't really tell where they start and where they end. And so if you don't see like a marker that someone put there, like when you're playing online, which there are some, but not a lot, or if you don't see, the snow falling, because it doesn't always land, it like, you'll have a few spots here and there where it will land, but not a ton of them. It's really easy to fall off the ledge. Now you can, of course, drop those, I can't remember what they're called, but they're like these glowing stones that you can drop, and you can drop them. You can use them to either mark the path, or you can use them to, if you toss one out and it falls, then you'll know, first of all, whether or not there's a path there, because if it lands directly in front of you, there's a path, but if it falls all the way down, then there's not a path there. And of course, if you're using them in normal gameplay, dropping those, if when they land you hear a screaming sound, that means that if you land where they landed, you will die. If they don't, then you're safe and you can drop down and you'll survive. But there's like this one section where, in order to get to some items, like I think it's like a titanite slab and some other stuff like that. But I'm a completionist trying to get everything done. This path, like part of it is straight, but then it kind of like zigzags around. But I couldn't really find like a good, clear guide online, because even like fighting Cowboy, he was falling off constantly, and he said it's like one of the worst sections of the whole game, because of that. But there's so you take this pathway to get back to an area where you just pick up a couple items. I think that there's one of the gold crystal golems that you can kill back there as well, and then you take it back and then come over, and then there's a separate pathway that you take in order to get to the actual boss. So the thing is that I had gotten to the boss, taking the correct pathway for that, fought the boss, ended up dying, had to go back, and I forgot that the pathway to the boss was on a separate section from this winding pathway. So I cannot tell you how many times I tried to go on this winding pathway, trying to find my way over. At one point, I bought the maximum number of those stones to drop them down carefully, so that, as I'm walking along, so that I know what pathway I can take to be safe, thinking that, okay, this path is going to take me over to where the path is to the boss. And so I'm wasting all this time doing that. I end up going back, go back into the Fightin' Cowboy video, watch his again, and then I'm reminded, oh yeah, this winding path just takes you back to some items. After you've gotten those items, you can take the path to the boss, which is just a straight shot. It's like, once you know where the pathway is, it's basically just a straight shot, and you can get there very easily when you know where to go. You don't have to worry about any winding paths. It's literally you drop down off of some crystals. There's a completely straight path that you can walk back to get back to the boss. And then you go fight the boss and do the best you can. Now, with this boss, if you manage to cut off its tail, you get what is considered one of the best games in the game, at least if you have an intellect build, which is the Moonlight Greatsword. So you have to cut off you have to attack the middle tail in the back, which is, it's not always easy to get to, because the boss swerves a lot to basically avoid you getting back there. And there are, certain windows you have in order to get in and actually attack it. So I only attack the tail. That's all I attack. When I watched Fightin' Cowboy did it, He kept attacking it. It was close to the end that he was able to cut it off and get the sword. For me, however, even though I attacked only that tail, the sword did not come for me. Now, granted, I don't have the build I need. I mean, my intellect is way too low to actually be able to make any use of it. But still, I wanted to get it, especially because it does go towards an achievement. So, I mean, I did end up beating it. I think probably fourth or fifth try going through that fight. But yeah, like I was pretty close the first time to beating it, and then it was just more that I was being a little too greedy in my attacks and got myself killed. Alright, so I beat Seath the Scaleless. Then I went into the area that is right after the what you call it? The sister of Quelaag. So there's the fight with Quelaag that I did earlier, of course. Then there's her sister, where you can get the loyalty thing, and if you give her 30 souls, you get some powerful some powerful pyromancy spells, and then you also it makes it so that you can unlock a shortcut to Lost Izalith in a different area, and it also makes it possible to keep Solaire from going insane, which there's kind of like a separate quest line related to that he will go insane if you don't do certain things. So anyway, I go into there, I fight the Ceaseless Discharge, which I found out I'm pretty sure doesn't even have an achievement tied to it, because I guess it doesn't. Some of the bosses don't. And so it's interesting though. On my way there, actually no, never mind. This was after. So go there. Takes a few tries. That thing hits really hard. It's not a super hard boss fight, but it's very difficult to avoid its attacks, and you kind of just have to tank them as best as you can. And then once you defeat it, then the lava drains in the area, or most of the lava drains in the area, which gives you access to other parts of that area that you didn't previously have access to. And one of the things that comes up quite a bit is that you have, I'm not sure if they're weaker versions or if they're just, well, they're probably, I don't know if they're weaker or not. Like, I don't know if they have as much HP or if it's just because I'm so much more powerful, it feels like they have less HP. But you have multiple Capra demons, multiple Taurus demons. So the early bosses that you fought in the game, there's just a bunch of them walking around. Now the nice thing is the Capra demons, of course, for one, you have way more room to work with, and two, one jump attack for me would kill a Capra demon, or two regular R1 swings. And same goes with the well, I should say the different Taurus demon thing. It just takes 2 attacks to kill. Like, even if you do a jump attack, it will knock off most of the health, but it won't knock all of it off. And keep in mind, I'm doing primarily a strength build, and using Zweihander as my primary weapon. Though I have been testing out various other things, like the Titanite pole, I think is what it's called. It's the one that the Titanite demons use. It's kind of like a spear with like a hook at the end of it. It's pretty good. Great for like, I mean, it's a lot faster than the Zweihander, but it's also nowhere near as strong. And it does let you do that jumping thrust attack that the Titanite demon does, and that I loathe so very much when he does it against me. But anyway, so where was I going with that? Sorry, I'm all over the place because I've played a bunch of this game this week, and so I'm just trying to remember like all the developments since then. But anyway, so I get past all the mini capper demons, all the mini Taurus demons. They're definitely smaller, but still, relatively strong. It's just that they go down very easily comparatively because of how strong I am. And I also made Smau's hammer, which I'm finally strong enough now to wield one-handed. But I haven't used it a whole lot. Anyway. And I also got Quaylog's Fury Sword, which is a pretty cool sword. The range is just a little too short for my taste, but otherwise, I really like it. Anyway. Sorry, I'm just like all over the place here. So I get through Ceaseless Discharge, which drains the lava, lets me get further along. Then I go into the next area where I fight the Fire Sage Demon, which is basically just another version of the what you call it, the Undead Asylum boss that you face. But the original I can't remember what the original one was called, but the second one was called the Stray Demon. So it's just basically the same thing as the Stray Demon, which is the more difficult version of the initial boss that you face, the tutorial boss. But he's on fire. So it's basically exactly the same boss fight, except that he's on fire and it's a different area. And that one took me several tries, but it took me a handful of tries. It didn't take me as many tries as the Stray Demon did, but it was still one of the bosses that took me quite a few tries to get through. So I beat that, move forward, get down to the Centipede Demon boss, which I did die the first time, but I don't remember why. It wasn't, that big of a deal though, but I just went back in and faced it again. Oh, I know why I died. It was because in order to get to the area where you can actually like properly attack it, you have to run through lava. And until you get the item that boss drops, that lava does a lot of damage very, very fast. So you can cut off its arm during the fight, and if you cut off its arm and then kill like the centipede its arm turns into, then you get that item. But of course you don't have time to equip it during the fight, and for the most part you're not dealing with lava anyway. So the first time that I went into that fight, I had not thought to heal after the first time I ran through lava, and so my health was low enough to where the second I got hit, I died. But then the second time I went in and I fought it with Solaire summoned as well. Just because I could. Not because I felt like I needed to, but because I felt like I wanted to. So Solaire helped me and took him out pretty easily. Got the item, which you get the item even if you don't cut off its arm, because the item is something that is essential to get forward in the game. Because once you get past that, you get into the next area, which is Lost Izalith, and there's lots of lava to traverse across. And if you have that particular piece of equipment on, then you basically can just you can run across the lava and it does very, very little damage, like almost nothing. And without it, it drains your health very, very, very fast. So I moved forward in that, was able to get through that. I think there was something else before that. Oh yeah, that's right. I went to the I can't remember the name of the area, but there's another Hydra, a second Hydra you fight. And this one's doesn't have like a boss health bar, but it is basically a mini boss. I mean, it's about the same level of challenge as the other one. You have a little more area to work with, but yeah, the biggest challenge with that part though was so you get into the area by going through a tree in Blighttown. So there's like in the bottom, in the swamp area, there's a big like tree root that you walk up, and then there's an invisible wall, or what you call them, walls, illusory wall. So you knock out the illusory wall, and then you can go down into this area, which I don't remember the name of it. And you have to go down this system of routes, which it's very treacherous, and definitely died way too many times going down there. Then when you get down there to the very bottom, you can go to this dragon lake area, which ultimately will lead you to where you get the Dragon Covenant. And you can also get a sword from the dragon that's in the that you can pledge allegiance to become part of the Dragon Covenant. Thankfully, you can actually cut off its tail without it getting aggroed. So you can cut off its tail and all that, no problem. But anyway, going back to fast forwarding to where I got. So then I fought the what's the name of that boss? It's one that people absolutely hate, and Bed of Chaos. So I did find the cheese strategy that works very well. I was able to get through the fight my first try without any problems. And the video for it that I got it from is fantastic because, when you're going into the boss arena, you're basically like sliding down a steep slope. And the person who made the video had a song from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater playing. And it's like the second I heard it, it's like, I remember this. I remember hearing the song. I don't remember which stage it was from, but I remember there's a place where everyone can be happy. It's the most beautiful place in the whole effing world. Da 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 da. Anyway, so yeah, I went ahead and that was fantastic. A fantastic meme, and he did it every time that he slid down, because the way that it works is what you can do in the fight, and I don't think that this is necessarily the developers intended. There's 3 phases to the boss fight. The first phase, you have to take out one side and like take out its thing, whatever it is. So you take out one side, and then you're supposed to take out the other side, and each time you take out a side, then it like basically frees an appendage that's on fire, and then it can attack you with that appendage. After you take out the second side, then the appendages attack you more directly, and the arena catches fire in many cases. You got fire coming up out of the ground, all this stuff. And then you have to get to the middle section, which if you walk forward and you're not careful, the floor breaks beneath your feet, and if you don't land in the right spot, of course you die. But then you just go in to the middle, you break some roots by rolling into them, and then after you roll into them and break the roots, you just have to kill this fiery bug on the ground. So the way the cheese strategy is, you start by going in and you run over to the right side, you roll into the roots until all of them break, and then attack once, and it starts the second phase. You can save and quit though, which is, once again, I don't think the developers intended it, but you can do that. You save and quit, and then when you bring the game back up, it'll take you back in front of the fog gate. You open up the fog gate, it's still in phase 2. So then phase 2, you have to run around the left side, you have to stay like close to the wall, and then you can find what you call it, you can you can fire arrows at that particular section on the left side until it starts phase 3. And then once you do that, you save and quit again, you bring it back up, and then as soon as you enter the boss arena, it will still be in phase 3, and you just have to basically run out, you bait the boss into swinging both of its arms, Then you run forward. You know that as long as you know where the floor is going to break and where the root is when the floor breaks, you can just run onto the root, and then from there you can go in and run to the middle, attack the middle, and kill the boss. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm definitely going to have to play around with inputting all the footage, because I recorded a lot of footage from these various boss fights, because I wanted to have these for posterity. And speaking of which, I do want to note, this is not like new footage or anything, just saying in general, something I don't know why I didn't think of it before, because it's a blatantly obvious thing. You know how I've been complaining about the fact that you can't send the longer clips over from the Steam Deck? If you go into desktop mode, you can export the clips as MP4s, and then you can just copy them onto a flash drive and transfer them over to computer in their entirety. I wish I had figured that out sooner, but I did figure it out, I don't know, a few days ago, and was able to get all of the clips that I've recorded. Bloodstained was the only one where for some reason it crashes. Steam crashes every time I try to export that particular video file. I don't know why. I mean, it didn't have anything like crucial in it. It was basically just some general gameplay of me getting through that last area, and I mean, I didn't even finish everything, so. But I think that's probably everything. Lots and lots of Dark Souls. And now I have, I think, let me check. It's either 6 or 7 bosses I have left. I think it's 7. I made a checklist, but let's see here. I got 7 bosses left.
Okay.
So.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of progress that you've made over the past week. Also, what is that shortcut for New Londo Ruins that leads to the Four Kings boss fight you mentioned?
So it's basically just you go through the entry, so you take the elevator down from the Firelink Shrine, and then you go across the bridge to like the first area where ghosts pop out, and then you just kind of like go forward. It's an area that you can't even get to until after you drained it. I'll send you the video though specifically, so that way you'll have it, because it is very useful and it saves a lot of time and deaths probably. So it will be very helpful when you get to that point.
Okay, yes, thank you. I'll definitely check this out, because whenever I get back to Dark Souls, I probably will continue with the New Londo Ruins. Like, it's also very fascinating just like hearing how you've been progressing through the game, because I initially started going through after being the Quelaag boss fight. I went through that fire area, faced Ceaseless Discharge, and went a little bit further in, and I faced some of the Taurus and Capra demons, but they were, I felt definitely they were like more of a challenge. I mean, they weren't, of course, as you mentioned, the same as the boss fights, but they were still tough enough that after a while I was just like, I really don't feel like being here, so I decided just to explore more, and eventually I went to the New Londo Ruins, and that was where it was at. Although actually I think at some point though I might have already peeked a little bit into the Duke's archives, like somehow I think I placed the Lord Vessel somehow, and that gave me access. But I don't know when I did that.
Well, the only way you could have the Lord Vessels if you beat the Four Kings. Or wait, maybe I'm wrong on that. No, I'm wrong. Well, yeah, you can't place the Lord Vessel until you've beaten the Four Kings, because you can't access that area until you've beaten the Four Kings unless you found some way to glitch into there. You get the Lord Vessel when you beat Ornstein and Smaug. But I think you might be able to get like to the outside of the Duke's archives. But once you've placed the the Lord Vessel, that's when the Duke's Archives opens, because otherwise it's like blocked off by a golden fog door.
Yeah, like I definitely remember the golden fog door, but I was like, because you talked to one of those, you talked to one of the, I forget what their names are, but like the snake heads that pop out near the Firelink Shrine. Like I can't remember because I thought I talked to one of them, and then I like somehow placed it, and then I had access. I can't remember like what I did specifically, but I thought somehow I managed to do it.
That's interesting, because like, yeah, I mean, you encounter one in the Abyss who will take you to that area. He basically eats you, and then you go to that area, and there you can place it. But I guess it's possible the other one lets you do it somehow. I haven't tried doing that, so maybe that is an alternate way to do it. I don't know. Anyway,
but I definitely didn't get too far there, because only reason I didn't keep going further is because I know that at some point you face Seath, and it's a fight you're supposed to lose. So I was like, I really don't feel like dying to him right now.
Right.
Especially because I was like, I don't remember if you lose any items or not. Like, did you actually lose anything when you died to him?
I think, well, at that time, because of the guide told me to, I put on a rare ring of sacrifice, so I didn't lose anything.
Okay.
But I would assume that normally you would. But yes, you are supposed to lose that first encounter with Seath that's in the Duke's Archives. And then when you get down to the Crystal Cave, to the actual Seath fight, you have to like break a crystal in the back of the arena, or have him break it, and then after that you can attack him and kill him.
Okay, yeah. Like hearing you go through everything, it's really just made me want to go back into it and continue. I'm just like, it's been such a while that I don't even remember exactly where I was. I mean, I know I was in New Lana Ruins, but I don't remember if I was following any particular side quests or not. Like that's the one thing that kind of bugs me about playing or like dropping Souls games and jumping back into them.
Right.
Is not knowing whose quest I was trying to follow, because there's no way to keep track of that.
Well, I mean, that's why I have that checklist. It's been super helpful. I mean, I had that tab open for, well, literally since March, because that's, when I started going through the game, I was following the checklist, and I just had that tab up on my Brave browser on my phone, sitting there for months and months, and it's like, okay, whenever I'm ready to go back to this, I have the checklist. I'll continue going through everything. So, but yeah, I mean, that's really the easiest thing to do, in my opinion, is using a checklist. Either that, or just like bringing up Fighting Cowboys guides, because obviously, like, he knows his stuff, and even though he doesn't do everything perfectly, he still can tell you, okay, this is where this is, so on and so forth. Sometimes he has to check his notes, because most of the videos he did, he got an early release of the build, like FromSoft sent it to him to put together the guides, but he had already played through the original Dark Souls a bunch of times, so he knew where everything was, with the exception of some of the new stuff. But yeah.
One question I do have though is, since you've been making such good progress, do you feel like you might attempt any of the DLC for the game?
Yeah, I'm doing everything I have left. Some of it is DLC and some of it is not, but like I went through and I got the list of every single boss in the game, and there's just 7 total that I have left.
Okay. I thought, so like the 7 total also includes the DLC boss fights.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, I already did what's her face, the Priscilla, the in the fire. I mean the painting world. So I have Dark Sun Gwendolyn, Gravelord Nito, Sanctuary Guardian, which I know is a DLC boss, Knight Artorios, which is also a DLC boss, Black Dragon Calamite, Manus, Father of the Abyss, and Gwyn, Lord of Cinder.
Okay, so you really just have...
So I know that 2 of those are DLC, I can't remember which one's the last DLC boss.
Manus.
Okay.
He's the final boss, and because I think the order is Sanctuary Guardian, then the Black Dragon, then Artorias, then Manus.
Okay. So yeah. But yeah, so I have a handful of things left to go through. Thankfully, I was able to get the can't remember the name of the helmet, but it's a helmet that comes from one of those like light bugs that you face in Lost Izalith, and with that helmet you can actually light up the area around you a bit. And I think actually it might also make it so you can see through illusory walls, or like see where there are illusory walls. I can't remember exactly how it works. I have to take a closer look at it, but I seem to remember that it did one or both of those things, which would be super useful, especially because I didn't manage to get the skull lantern when I was in the catacombs. I think that what happened was I killed the last of the sages, whatever, the zombie mage thing, but I died right after killing it, and so even though it would have dropped it, I wasn't able to pick it up because I got killed. Then when I came back, it wasn't there anymore. So I'm hoping that's the case, because otherwise getting to the whatever those tombs are, yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. So I remember trying to get there when I was playing on Switch and how much I was struggling, and I definitely fell off more than once. But at least on the plus side, I'm so much higher leveled to where it shouldn't be a big deal. Like, I'm at, I think, 81, thereabouts, something like that. My strength is up to 60, so I think for now I'm done raising up my strength, and I'm going to focus on getting my vitality and my whatever the stat is related to stamina. For some reason I can't remember the name of it, but focus more on those two. Probably stamina first. But anyway. So yeah.
Nice.
Having a good time with it. I still, at least so far, maintain that Ornstein and Smaug are the hardest boss I've had to face. Now, I've heard Manus is extremely difficult. I've heard Gwyn is extremely difficult. So I'm expecting both of those to be hard, at the very least. I'm sure that all of them to some degree will be difficult. One of the fire spells I got is like super overpowered. The problem is that it casts very, very slowly. So, I mean, I know that if you like raise up, I think it's your dexterity stat, you can cast the spells faster, but I'm not going to do that just for that one spell. But it's like super powerful because it just basically creates a bunch of pillars of fire in front of you that can just completely decimate an enemy. And I remember watching a video, someone using it on bosses, and it was just melting them. Yeah. And I used it a little bit when I was farming for humanity down in the depths. I only used it once or twice because it wasn't really fast enough. And basically, if you get off a full cast once, you only get 2 casts. In the second cast, it's only like a couple. Because technically you have 20 casts within it, but it basically does 18 of them in the first shot. And that's with my I have my pyromancies leveled up to plus 15 now. Or plus 18? I can't remember. I guess it's probably plus 15 because I don't think there is a plus 18. I don't think it gets above 15. I know the swords don't. Anyway, I'm babbling. Obviously, I've been talking a bunch about Dark Souls. In fact, probably the past, 30-40 minutes has just been me talking about Dark Souls. But technically, we have a lighter news week, so yeah. I'm done. Oh my goodness. No, I'm not. There's a separate game I completely forgot to talk about. So this one will probably be a little more, well, it will be briefer than the Dark Souls chat. Kingdom Hearts 3. So I finished going through those cutscenes the other day for the Union Cross. And then rewatched the cutscenes for the Birth by Sleep Fragmentary Passage, the Kingdom Hearts 0.2. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to try out Kingdom Hearts 3. Just tried it on the Steam Deck. Default settings. It is basically all low settings, and I didn't realize initially, but it's rendering at 50% resolution. So even when you have it, so basically it's 400p. You're getting 60 frames per second the entire time, which is great, or just about the entire time anyway. But like I was playing a bit. I got 2 Olympus, and for once it's actually not Olympus Coliseum, it's actually Olympus, which is a nice change of pace. And like I wasn't really happy with the visuals. I was like, man, I mean, it runs great, but it looks terrible. And I mean, it wasn't quite the Nintendo Switch Vaseline effect, but it was like really pixelated and just didn't look good at all. And I was trying to figure out why it was so bad. Like I was almost willing to sacrifice, a little bit better visuals, and, take a slight cut to performance to get better visuals out of it. But I tried upping the settings, and like I was trying to just up the character models, which is usually the first thing I'll up because that's the thing that's most noticeable. It didn't seem to do anything. Tried messing with a couple other settings, didn't seem to do anything. And then I was looking it up, and the person recommended doing 75% resolution scaling, and then you could still get a solid 60 or at the very least 40. And I went ahead and ultimately ended up doing that, bumped it because I didn't realize that the resolution scaling was an option because so few games have that nowadays. So, but when I did that, oh man, it looks so much better, and it still runs at 60 basically the whole time. So, yeah, I got it up to basically a solid 60 frames per second at only 75% resolution scaling, but on the Steam Deck, and there is footage here recorded. So you'll be able to see that whenever you watch the video version. And for anyone listening, of course, if you watch the video version. But man, it looks great. It runs great. I'm super impressed with how well it runs and how good it looks, even at 75% scaling. You can go up to 200% scaling, which I'll probably end up trying on PC and see how it does performance-wise with that. Because basically that would mean that I'd be running the game at 4K. Potentially 4K 60, but we'll kind of see what I go for. I mean, usually obviously 120 frames per second is what I aim for, but either way, yeah, I basically just played through a good chunk of Olympus, and that was it, because I don't want to get too much into it, because I know that if I play this too long, it's going to mess up my muscle memory for Dark Souls, and so I will definitely not be doing much of anything with it until at least after I finish Dark Souls, especially because I'm getting closer to being done with it. I know I still have quite a bit to do, but I think for most things I'm over leveled, which is good. I think the highest level area is like level 75 recommendation, and I'm already over that. So, and for the most part, I mean, I haven't really struggled to kill enemies. It's more just getting ganged up on, or falling off of the environment, things like that, the usual stuff that can be detrimental. But yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 looks and runs great on the Steam Deck, and I'm super happy about that. That was my last game.
Very nice, very nice. Wow. Eventually I'll check it out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're going through the other games.
Road.
Yeah, it's going to be a long road, but it'll be worth it when you get there. All right. Any other thoughts or questions or comments before we get into the news?
No, sir.
All right. So, topics for tonight. We got Final Fantasy XVI has been officially confirmed as coming to PC. And not only has it been confirmed for PC, but it has a release date of September 17th. And it has a demo that is, of course, free to play right now. And people have, of course, tested this on PC. They've also tested it on the Steam Deck. And surprisingly, it actually runs reasonably well for the most part on Steam Deck. Now, interestingly enough, the real-time cutscenes are where it seems to drag the most, which is just odd. And I mean, yes, they are entirely in engine. They're not pre-rendered. So from that standpoint, it makes sense. But what doesn't make as much sense is the fact that where that has issues, the actual gameplay seems to run pretty smoothly. Even hitting 60 frames per second a lot of the time, from at least from the little bit of testing that I watched. I haven't tested it, of course, myself. I'm not really planning to. I figure whenever I eventually get this on PC, then I will try it out on Steam Deck, and by that point it should be, better optimized. But yeah, anyway, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it definitely was interesting that we got the news, and then also that it's coming out so soon. I would have expected it to possibly come out a little later into the year, but two things really actually surprised me though. The first off was that it wasn't Epic Games exclusive, that it was actually also coming to Steam day one on PC. So that was sort of like my first, oh wow, this is good news. The second thing that really surprised me, this surprised me more, is the fact that it's only $50.
Oh,
I
really?
would have thought that, yeah.
Wow, I didn't see that.
that completely took me by surprise.
That is surprising.
I thought that would
is that $50 including the DLC though?
I think, let me double check, but I thought that includes the DLC.
Wow.
I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching the trailer right now because I have that in the footage. I guess I'll have to look and see. It says available in a complete edition, which I think the complete edition is more expensive, so that makes more sense. Okay. But even still, $50 for the base game. That's
I see now.
Still not bad.
The complete edition is $70, but the base game's $50.
I mean, that's not bad though. I mean, when you consider the fact that when PlayStation users got this, the base game was $70, and now it's been a year since it came out on PlayStation 5, and it's coming to PC and includes, or I mean, you can get the full game with all DLC for $70. Much better deal.
Yeah, so that definitely was a very big surprise, at least for the base game being $50, because that Square sometimes isn't. Square sometimes, I think, overcharges for late ports on PC. So, I mean, they definitely did that with Final Fantasy VII and Kingdom Hearts. I would definitely say they really charged more than they probably.
Well, 7 wasn't as bad in my opinion because it did include the DLC, and I think it was, I want to say it was $60 with the DLC, which wasn't bad at all. I mean, and the DLC has, has 3-4 hours of gameplay. I mean, it's also it's like its own standalone thing. You don't even have to play the base game to play it. I mean, you should, because story-wise, it's important, but it doesn't technically spoil anything from the base game. Anyway.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, that's more or less everything that I had thoughts on, but it's definitely good that people are getting to play this much sooner than we anticipated. And of course, as we've mentioned before, we knew this was coming, but just we didn't know when. Yeah. So it's good to have that confirmation, and also have a confirmation of the price. Also, that I know that at least with Kingdom Hearts, Square was just holding that off until the very last minute to reveal the price for that. But yeah, I mean, this isn't something that I'll be getting day one, and I'm also not entirely certain if I'll even get this one, just because I wasn't crazy about 16 or getting 16. But I don't know, maybe sometime down the road I might reconsider, maybe get it on instant gaming. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, watching the gameplay, for me at least, it looks like it would be pretty fun. I mean, it's obviously very heavily action-based because it's not... I mean, it's a purely action game. compared with previous Final Fantasies, which even like Remake was mostly an action game, but this one's just straight up 100% action. So I think it looks cool. I've heard that people compare it to like Devil May Cry, and I mean, I've only played all the way through the first 2 Devil May Cry games and partway into the 3rd one, but I've liked what I played of that. And of course, like I said, just watching some of the gameplay, it looks like it would be something I would enjoy. But yeah. In terms of my overall thoughts, not really much of anything to say other than what you've already said. I'm glad that this has been officially confirmed, that it's coming very soon. Not anything that I'm buying anytime soon, because at minimum, I want to play through Final Fantasy 15 before I play 16. And obviously, like right now, I'm already overfilled on games to play. Speaking of which, I forgot to mention my copy of that game that recently came to all platforms from Xbox. Gosh, what is it called? Pentiment shipped. So I should be getting that, I think, this weekend. I don't think I'll be playing it for a while, but my physical copy's coming, and it didn't take the year like Persona did, so that's good. But yeah, anyway, regarding Final Fantasy 16, I mean, I do think the game looks great. I've heard great things about it. I very much am interested in playing it, but just not anytime soon, because I have more than enough games to play right now, and like I'm already in part kind of struggling to with the desire to pull myself away from Dark Souls to play Kingdom Hearts, or go. I mean, I do need to finish up Bloodstained, and that'll be more kind of a side thing, but it's just like there's so many games I want to play, and I just don't even have time for any of them. So I'm trying to get myself to just stick to what I got first, and then focus on trying out new games once I've actually finished some of the games that I've been working on. But yeah, that's about all I have to say on that front. All right, any other thoughts on that?
No, sir.
All right. So Bloodborne, of course, as we talked about before, no official PC version. Sony's just dragging their heels about doing a remaster. But the emulation side of things with the PlayStation 4 emulator on PC has been making some significant progress. Seems like it was only a few weeks ago that they basically just had the title screen up. And in this past week, they've managed to get the game actually running. You can get past the title screen, you can start playing. The visuals were not in great shape, and there's no sound, basically. So it was just kind of like, okay, it's a work in progress. We had like a semi-playable version of the game, even though it was still missing a lot of textures and stuff. But the progress it's making has been really impressive. And I'll display, there's a video here that I'm displaying from Brutal Sam, who has compiled some footage from various people who have put their footage up on the Shad PS4 Discord. And Shad PS4 is the name of the emulator, the PlayStation 4 emulator. And granted, most of these people are running the game with like 40 series graphics cards. So, performance is going to vary depending on what you're running on. But they've been able to get this game, even though in some cases not with a lot of textures missing, especially like the character textures and the actual and any like sound. They've been able to get this game running at 60 frames per second or better. In the case of the 40 series cards, in many cases they've actually been able to get over 120 frames per second, sometimes 144 frames per second. And just looking at what they have, even though there's definitely still textures missing right now, it looks like it is completely playable. I mean, definitely not perfect by any stretch. It still needs work, but it's made a lot of progress since this whole process started. And yeah, so what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely incredible how so little time has passed, yet so much progress has made. And as you mentioned, there's still as much progress to be made, due to the fact that sound, as you mentioned, sound is missing, the textures are not complete. And I mean, now correct me also if I'm wrong, because initially when I was watching the video, I thought there was a problem on my end, and I double checked just to make sure it wasn't the video being frozen or anything like that. So I was checking the counter to make sure it's moving. With the 4060 Ti, with the Ryzen, I think 5700 build, was the game completely frozen?
Yeah, it did freeze for a little bit,
yeah.
and I think that from what I can tell, it seems that was like an earlier some earlier footage, when the progress was much earlier along.
Okay. Yeah, and the reason I was mentioning that was because, of course, as you mentioned, with a good portion of the gameplay that I had seen, and I didn't watch the playthrough, I was jumping through certain parts here and there, but I noticed, of course, you have someone who's running a 4090 card and
Right.
using 32 gigs of RAM, and also had a high-end CPU as well. And so it was just making me wonder, like, what kind of PC would someone need to use a PS4 emulator? Now, granted, yes, I know that in order to emulate, you need to have a reasonably more powerful PC to run that level of emulation, but like, I would feel like you shouldn't necessarily need to have such a high-end card that high level of a CPU just to emulate the PS4. I mean, I could be wrong with my guesses, but I was like thinking like maybe things would be. I mean, of course, also this is still an early build,
Right.
and I mean, also the PS4 emulator also is still way in early development anyway. But I mean, so like, we'll see how things go later on, especially as things are more optimized. But just right now, it just seems like in order to actually get it to run, you definitely need the beefiest of PCs to get things going for you. But I am definitely impressed though with how things are going. And I mean, if this ever does happen, because I mean, I don't want to discard this notion, but if Sony ever does release Bloodborne on PC, I feel like the fans would have already beaten them to it, because they're definitely putting in more visible effort. I mean, of course, they could be doing something behind the scenes, but they're putting in more visible effort into bringing Bloodborne over than Sony is. So definitely kudos to the team working on this.
Yeah, for sure. So I have to say, this actually has gotten me really excited. The other thing is that it's kind of interesting to think about. Like, of course, before I had always been of the mindset that I'm not sure if I even want to play Bloodborne. And of course, well, I should say in the past, obviously, I hadn't even been interested in the Soulsborne stuff in general. But as I've been watching this develop, of course, and then on top of that, as I've been making more and more progress in Dark Souls, I very much have been interested in playing Bloodborne. And before, I wasn't even sure. I do want to just quickly mention here, because the footage is showing off, of course, I did download this video from the YouTube channel Brutal Sam. Shout out to him. I will make sure to link the video in the description. And I want to give proper credit where credit is due. Of course, this is still transformative because of the fact that our commentary is over it. But That being said, getting back to my overall thoughts on Bloodborne, I've very much gotten to a point where if this becomes playable on PC via emulation, like actually playable, if I can get 60 frames per second on this game, I would be completely satisfied with that, given how well my experience with Dark Souls has been. But if Sony were to actually release an official version of this game, I think I would probably buy it. I would probably buy it day one, especially because obviously for me it's not really an issue to link a PlayStation Network account since I already have that account, and that they're going to require it. So I guess you would have to deal with that to play Bloodborne unless you manage to get a machine beefy enough to emulate it. But yeah, like I'm legitimately excited about this, and of course I'm not like in any rush to play Bloodborne, particularly because the current state of the build is still needs a lot of work. And of course, I mean, on top of that, I'm still finishing up Dark Souls. And I have, Elden Ring and such if I want to play another Souls type of game, or, there's a variety of other things I could play as well. But either way, I think that this is really cool that this is happening and that it's made as much progress as it has. And I'm just looking forward to seeing how much longer it takes to get this game not only fully playable, but like in the 100% state it should be at. Because right now I'd say it's like maybe 50%. I mean, technically, for people with beefy enough machines, they can play this game 100% beginning to end, theoretically, albeit just with a bunch of textures missing. But yeah, that's about all I gotta say about that.
Yeah, and one more thing I actually do want to add is the fact that I overlooked this. I mean, of course, you mentioned this, but the fact that it is that people are running this at 120 frames per second,
right? When
the game originally ran at 30 frames per second.
It ran maximum of 30 frames per second.
Yeah. Which it's definitely also just insane that Sony, not even for the PS5, went back and had it had a 60 frames per second patch for it.
Yeah, there's not an official one, but you can get a fan-made one. People have been playing Bloodborne at 60 on PS5 on modded PS5s.
Okay.
So there's that. At least that. In fact, that's the patch that they're using for this in order to get it above 60. They're using that
okay
fan-made patch.
Okay.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. You want to talk about Indiana Jones here? Dr. Jones.
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting. So earlier this week there was just like this one tweet that went out from Nate the Hate, who was saying that Indiana Jones was going to be coming to the PS5 next year. It was going to launch this holiday as time console exclusive and launch in the first half of 2025 for the PS5. Well, later today, turns out that, that's not really so far from the truth, because Microsoft confirms that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is coming out, this holiday for the Xbox and for PC, and then for spring 2025 for the PS5, which, wow. That's definitely, yeah, that definitely is quite a surprise. What are your thoughts on this, sir?
Well, I'm not surprised at all that this is happening. I'm a little surprised that it's as soon as it is, but at the same time, I mean, like, I can't remember what it was that we ultimately determined when we were originally talking about it, but I've just kind of, at least to some degree, always had it in the back of my mind that this was inevitable. And I mean, of course, the fact that it's happening, well, I mean, that shows that it was inevitable. My guess is that this is just going to be the first of many games that are going to be coming from Xbox to PC, or I'm sorry, Xbox to PlayStation, since they're already on PC. And it's just, I don't know, it's a situation where, obviously, man, I say obviously so much. There is... Sorry, my thoughts are not very organized here. When it comes to this, it's very much a situation that I'm not entirely surprised that these things are happening. And it seems like Xbox, that's kind of been the direction they've been going in general, is going ahead and putting their games on other platforms. They started doing it a while ago, and so it was really just more of a, it's not a question of if, or it's not a question of if, but when, especially once they released, 4 games, all for, PlayStation and in some cases Switch. I think it's a good thing that it's happening. And I don't think that this means the death of Xbox. I just think it's Xbox is taking a different approach. And even though their consoles are still probably never going to sell as well as they did back in the 360 days, the reality is this new strategy they're taking could very well end up working out very well for them. And especially because this game is coming to PlayStation so soon after it's releasing on Xbox and PC. I mean, I guarantee you there's going to be a bunch of people who have both Xbox and PlayStation but prefer PlayStation. They'll just wait for the PlayStation version. And, similarly, there are people who are solely PlayStation fanboys and, this game that they were saying looks like trash. They'll go ahead and they'll buy it on their PlayStation. And then they will either, find the lowest resolution, blurriest screenshots they can and use those as a means to say this game is trash, and then just spend all their time on Twitter talking about how bad it is, or they will play it and love it and still bash it because it's an Xbox game. But anyway, that's all I have to say.
So I definitely agree with you about how it was a matter of if but when, and I am very surprised about the fact that it is coming less than 6 months. I mean, considering the fact that Square's exclusives for games on the PS5 lasted at least a year, Microsoft isn't even probably waiting 6 months before it's coming over to the PS5. That astonishes me, to be honest. I would have thought maybe a year, maybe 2 years before it came over, but to be releasing, within a year, that definitely surprised me. But I mean, as far as as a whole, it's not that I dislike this. I mean, I think the more, and we've said this before, the more people that get to play games on their platform of choice, the better. Exclusives are not a good thing for the consumer, because if you want to buy a game that you want, if it's exclusive, you probably have to buy a console or another platform that you don't necessarily care to play the game on. So having a game locked to a completely different platform is a detriment to consumers. So I do like the strategy that Xbox is doing. I definitely think that it'll impact their sales, but I mean, at the end of the day, Microsoft's still getting money for this.
Right.
Whether people are buying because they own Bethesda now, so whether the game is coming out on Xbox, whether it's coming out on PC, whether it's coming out on the PS5, Microsoft still is going to get some revenue from this because people are buying the game. So it doesn't matter if at the end of the day, you know, if they're buying an actual console, Xbox console. And I mean, also, just even mentioning that, I mean, there's also the Game Pass, which they're working with, you know, like Amazon. So through streaming, you know, that's still another way for them to make money because people are subscribing to their service. So to play Indiana Jones, so they're still getting that money. So they definitely have a wide net. But whether, you know, of course, you know, that impacts their Xbox consoles, you know, that's up for debate on what happens there. But yeah, that's definitely pretty good. Also, it's good that we also have, you know, an actual release date in general, because that was something that we were still waiting on. They said that it was coming out this year, but they never said when it was coming out. So also good that we have that official just date in general. But yeah, I really don't have too much more to say on that.
All right. Something I do want to just add is there's basically, with the exception of Nintendo, there's no more exclusives. They're going away. And while, yes, the PlayStation games are not yet coming to Xbox, and who knows if they will officially, other than, you know, potentially if Steam comes to Xbox in the future. The reality is that nobody is neither PlayStation nor Xbox publishes games only for their platforms. Now, at minimum, they're publishing them for their platform and PC. And in many cases, it's probably going to be on all three. So I know that Xbox fanboys are definitely going to be upset about this. I've already seen a handful of them talking about how Microsoft has betrayed them. That Microsoft lied to them. And I mean, you know, Phil did say there's no plans currently when he said that. And that may or may not have been the case at the time. I'm guessing that it is something that has changed more recently. Obviously, with Satya Nadella being the head of Microsoft and all that, very likely he had a big say in this, and that's probably a big part of the reason why this game is coming to PlayStation. Now, whether or not this is something they've been working on for a while to have on PlayStation, who knows? It's really difficult to say, because until they officially come out and say that, oh, they've been working on this for PlayStation for a while, then we can't say for sure. Now, the fact that it's only like less than 6 months between, you know, when it comes to Xbox and PC and coming to PlayStation, that would suggest that it probably has been worked on for a while. But it could just very well be that the architecture is similar enough between the two platforms that they believe they can get it brought over to PlayStation in that short of a time. So, I don't know. Anyway, regardless of any of that, the fact of the matter is now that this game is coming to PlayStation. And I think it's good for everyone except for Xbox fanboys. So. Alright, that's all I got on that. Any final thoughts from you?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, let's get into our next topic here. So, Starfield is finally getting its vehicle. In fact, it's already dropped. They shadow dropped it, I think it was yesterday, Tuesday, August 20th. And it's more than just like a really basic vehicle. It's basically like a Jeep that has a jetpack on it and stuff, and it can boost across surfaces, and it can get some lift and stuff when jumping over gaps and all that. So it looks like they've definitely put some real effort into this, and it's not just like extremely bare bones like I thought it would be. And that would have been pretty content with the bare bones one because just having something to get around more easily would have been helpful. But this looks like it's a lot more expansive than that. Now, I have not had a chance to test it out yet. I'm not even sure if I've installed the update that includes it. This is another game that I really want to get back to, but I probably won't even touch until at least after I have finished Dark Souls. But anyway, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I saw the trailer, and initially when I was watching this, I thought, so just a trailer for a car. But then as it went on and showed more aspects of the car, I thought, this actually looks very good. It definitely looks more than just like a basic, four-wheel transportation. I mean, I'm only using this comparison because that's I have seen people compare this to that game, but in No Man's Sky, like, it seems like to be a much better version of all the time, or at least the land based vehicles in that game. Like, because there were different terrain vehicles that you could build and use, but they were not as versatile as that. I mean, none of them reached those levels of speed. The fact they can also boost across gaps, that definitely you definitely couldn't do that. And I mean, it just seems like a very good, fun way to move around without having to like do anything like crazy or anything like that. But like, I think this definitely looks good. One thing that also I saw at the end, which kind of took me by surprise, is I guess they're making a expansion that is releasing, what was it, September 20th or
September
something like
30th, yeah.
30th, yeah. So I think that was also a good tie-in to wrap up that trailer. But I mean, I think the vehicle definitely looks good. I don't know how long they had been working on this, but I would definitely say that it looks like it was worth the wait for getting this vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot express how much of a game changer this is going to be for the game, because it is, rightly so, one of the biggest complaints people had about Starfield at launch is just not having a vehicle to get around, because traversal is so slow, especially if you get over encumbered. It just takes so long to get anywhere when you have to walk/sprint anywhere. And you couldn't use fast travel if you were carrying too much, so that just made it that much slower. So this is going to be really huge, and especially if you're like me and you like to actually explore and check off all the items on any given planet, it's really nice to have something that will make it a lot easier to get around. So I'm looking forward to checking this out. I may even end up booting up the game sometime this week just so that I can play with it a bit, because like, I do miss Starfield. I really enjoyed what I played. It just, the issues I had with getting around were the biggest reason why I stopped playing, and this should pretty much solve that major issue, because that was by far the thing that was most frustrating to me of the whole thing. I love the exploration. I love the typical, the way that that these Bethesda games always like pull you off in different directions, because you get a quest and it takes you, sometimes it's just like a very simple quest, very basic, then other times it seems like it's really basic and ends up being a lot more complicated, but not in a bad way. Like, it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that to happen. And just I really enjoyed what I played in so many ways on this game, so I'm looking forward to jumping back in, even if I only just play a little bit, mostly just to test out the vehicle. I will say, regarding the story expansion, they did announce this some time ago, just didn't have a release date until this recent trailer. So I'm not getting the story expansion anytime soon because I haven't played through most of the base game content, but I could definitely see myself in the future grabbing the story expansion after I feel like I've done enough of the base game to make it worthwhile. All right. Any final thoughts on that?
No, sir.
All right. So going into our final story for the night, Black Myth Wukong got, it just released, and it's already had. I mean, we don't know the actual sales numbers. We do know that on Steam alone, it had over 2 million concurrent players. Now, I think a lot of people don't fully understand what this means. So it's not saying that there's 2 million people who bought the game. It's saying there was over 2 million people playing it at one time. Now, the majority of these people are in China. That is an important factor to note. And China, of course, has a huge population. But even so, it's still pretty dang impressive. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, this game definitely broke so many records. I mean, I can't remember what the highest, what the highest game that had with the most concurrent players, but like the fact that it broke so many ones, like going through the list of games that previously had held records. Like, I know it beat out, was it Red Dead that it beat out? It beat out Power World, because that one really broke records when it released earlier this year. But to do so well in just like your first initial release, that speaks volumes. And I mean, I know people have been looking forward to this game, just because it was something that was different. And I mean, I also was looking forward to the game, but like, people definitely still were hyped about this. And so yeah, I mean, this is just great, having something that is, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily completely different because it is like a Souls game, but having still, I do feel like we don't necessarily have too many games that are based off of Chinese mythology, but still having people get this. Also, technically getting the origins for Dragon Ball, because that's what Dragon Ball is actually based off of. So, getting a game based off that, getting that actual story, getting a game based off of that, I think is pretty cool. I can't remember if some people had some issues with performance just due to the fact that it is running on Unreal Engine 3, but I think that people are enjoying the gameplay though, from what I've heard. But yeah, I think this is pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's just fantastic that it's doing as well as it is. At one point people were saying this is not really a Souls-like, and from what I've been hearing, it's kind of like in between being a Souls-like and not a Souls-like. So that's kind of an interesting thought on that front. I've definitely thought, looking at it, that it looks like a game I would probably enjoy playing. And obviously, the fact that this is essentially the origins of the Dragon Ball story is another aspect of it. I've been trying to find where I can find the concurrent player numbers. Like I can see what it is right now, which it's 927,000 people currently playing it. But I can't remember where you find like the all-time what the maximum concurrent players is.
I wonder if it would be on like Steam DB or not. Let me see.
Let's see your stats. Here it goes. All right, so okay, so the peak concurrent players today for Black Myth Wukong, 2,358,580 players, so almost 2.4 million people playing it all at once, which is insane. And yeah, so but anyway, I think it's cool that it's doing that well. Of course, it definitely demonstrates the reality that PC gamers do buy games.
Audible gasp.
Right. Because it wouldn't show in there if people didn't buy it. So anyway, that's about all I have to say about that. I just think it's cool that that happened.
Most definitely.
All right. Any other thoughts before we close out for the night? Or any other topics you wanted to cover?
Good.
All right. Recommendations and dissuasions.
All right. So I kind of have 3 recommendations. 2 gaming, 1 general purpose.
Okay.
So first recommendation is going to be Streets of Rage 4. If you want a fun beat 'em up that while you can do some crazy stuff, sort of like you would in a 2D fighter game, it's not necessarily required. You can still just pick it up and have some fun. And you know, it has that nice good couch co-op, so if you want to play with a friend or someone like that, you can definitely do that. And I mean, I'm not the biggest of beat 'em up type of games, but that was still a game that I would go back and play again, so I definitely would recommend Streets of Rage 4. My second recommendation is if you're playing Halls of Torment, get all the potions. Even if you don't think you need them, you probably will need them if you're trying to get the achievement. You will most definitely will need them if you're getting the achievements. Don't be like me and think that they're not necessary, because they definitely are necessary and will help you in the long run. My final recommendation is a program called Test Disk. If you're someone who has either accidentally deleted a file, or say you deleted a file you thought you didn't need anymore, but then realized later on, man, I wish I actually had that file. Test Disk will go back and look through your drive, whether it's like internal storage, external storage, whatever. It will look at your drive and see if it can find that data and restore it for you. So even if it's something like you say, I put it in my, I deleted it, put it in my recycle bin and deleted it from there, it can still go back as long as you haven't done something like written data over your drive like multiple times, something like that, which will have overwritten it at some point. As long as you haven't done that, as long as it's relatively recent, or at least you haven't been writing too much data, you should be able to find something there, and you could possibly still restore it, because that's something that I have done before in the past, where I either accidentally deleted something, or I deleted something thinking like, I won't need this ever again, and then later on going like, yeah, I probably should not have done that. So that definitely has been useful. Now, of course, like I said, you probably won't be able to like recover everything that you've deleted, but it's something that could be a useful tool. Also, it is free to use. It's a free open source piece of software, so you can get it on Windows, you can get it on Linux. I don't know if it's available on Mac, but those 2 platforms I definitely know it's available.
Okay. Did you have any other recommendations?
Oh no, just those 3.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Yeah, Streets of Rage, particularly 2 and 3 were my childhood. I mean, were some of the earliest games I played with friends on the Sega Genesis. Those are the main reason that I got a Sega Genesis before I got any Nintendo consoles. Streets of Rage. I mean, among other games, but Streets of Rage was definitely up there. I have not played 4. I want to try to track down a physical copy for Switch, because I do enjoy the older Streets of Rage games. So I will have to look into that one of these days. Anyway. All right, so my recommendations. I have one for sure. I think that I might have had other ones, but I didn't write them down. So the one recommendation I definitely have is Kingdom Hearts 3 on the Steam Deck. If you're going to play that, don't go with the default settings that it gives you. Set the resolution scaling to 75%, and then you can mess with the graphical settings beyond that to get a better picture while still maintaining that 60 frames per second, because it makes a big difference going from 50% resolution scaling to 75%, and it really does look good. Even blown up a bit. Like when I put the footage on Streamlabs for putting together the podcast, it looks really good. Like, I mean, it's not perfect. Obviously, it's going to look better when I'm running it on my PC, but still, it looks great. It's at 60 frames, and considering Kingdom Hearts is something that, at least if you played the older versions, they were never 60 frames. It's just super satisfying. So that's my recommendation on that front. I might have had something else, but I don't remember what it was because I didn't write it down. So that's what I got.
All right.
Your dissuasion or dissuasions?
No, just one dissuasion, and that is to not have any type of regrets. And this is going to be sort of like a twofold. So whether it's because of something you did or something that you should have done but didn't do, don't go through life having some sort of regrets. Like think about what you're going to do, because it might not seem like that way now, but maybe later on in life you'll think, man, why did I do X, Y, and Z? Or I should have done this like years ago. So like, don't do that to yourself. Definitely evaluate the decisions that you make, so you don't have that sort of burden on yourself later on in life.
Always good. All right, well, I actually have 3 dissuasions. So my first dissuasion is basically related to the recommendation I made, and that's do not use the default image scaling on Kingdom Hearts 3. Just make sure that you bump it up to 75% when you're playing on the Steam Deck, so you get better picture and you get that good balance. Even if you keep it all on low settings, still having that 75% resolution scaling will make a big difference in the appearance of the game while not sacrificing on performance. So my next dissuasion is when you're playing Dark Souls or Dark Souls Remastered, do not go through Crystal Cave without a guide, or at least guide stones, which I believe that's what they're called, is guide stones, maybe not. But anyway, make sure you have something to help you out so that you're not needlessly falling down and then having to run all the way back from the Duke's Archives, because it's just kind of a long trek back and forth, and it's super easy to fall off. So do what you can to make sure that you don't have that problem, and don't just try doing it all by yourself, because you will likely spend more time frustrated than not, and it's just not worth it. Lastly, my last dissuasion is there's this special ring that you get when you defeat the Centipede Demon in Dark Souls Remastered. And let me remember what it's called. The Orange Charred Ring. Don't make the mistake that I did one time after getting it and forget to equip it before running through lava, because you will die very quickly. If you put it on, you can run through the lava. Your health drains very, very slowly. You're good. But if you forget to put it back on, like if you switch over to a different ring, you're going to die. And then you will regret it and you'll feel stupid, especially if you're going back to pick up a bunch of souls that you dropped previously from dying. And then you lose them. So
oh no.
Don't forget to put that thing back on if you take it off. That's what I got.
One question I have, I actually forgot to ask this question earlier. So with the guide stones, if you toss them, do they reset when you go to visit a bonfire, or do they reset later on? Oh, okay.
Well, I'm not sure about bonfire normally, but if you die, then they disappear.
Okay.
Which sucks.
Okay, I was just curious about how that works, because I haven't used them. I don't think I've really used them before.
Yeah, I never used them before I went in the Crystal Caves.
So I was just curious about that, especially since you mentioned that if you play online, you should see other people's guide stones, but I play offline.
Well,
so
not the guide
see that.
stones, but yeah. It's more just people's messages, and those can be helpful. I play offline the majority of the time, but occasionally, like if I'm dealing with a situation where I want to be able to have some additional tips, messages from people, especially for a situation like that. Like, I turned it on mostly because I was hoping that people would mark the path with messages, and they did to a certain degree, but for the most part, not very much. Not in the spots where I needed it the most. But, yeah. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right, well, where can people find you?
People can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. As it has been for these past weeks, still nothing new, just because of same situation. But as I said, as soon as that's resolved, I will definitely have content going out.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. All right. Well, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at TheFrozenGamer87. Of course, as I've mentioned previously, I am taking a break for a couple weeks, so there's no new content going up until September. But the next comparison video that I'm going to be putting up is comparison for Persona 4 Golden between the Switch, Steam Deck, and Vita OLED. And so that should be a fun comparison to do, mostly because Persona 4 Golden is one of my favorite games. And, of course, Vita was the place that I played it a bunch. So I'm looking forward to doing that one when I get time to actually do some recording for it. I don't know the exact date that I'm going to have stuff start going up again. As of right now, I'm leaning towards... it should be around September 2nd would be when I would have that comparison going up. And... but it could potentially be later. It mostly depends on how long it takes for me to get the recordings done, because it's probably going to be an hour plus of footage for each game. And it just takes time to record all of that, and then of course on top of that, syncing them all up and putting them all in a single video, all that. So we'll see what it takes for that, but I still very much want to do it. So we'll get there when we get there. But otherwise, then I also have my YouTube cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's youtube.com/@NABD Cooking. I'm also taking a break on that channel, but the most recent recipe I put out was for a Huevos Rancheros pizza. Was a very, very good recipe. I have a couple more recorded for guacamole and salsa con queso, but I also recorded this past week the buffalo chicken mac and cheese recipe, which I did not record the voiceover while doing it because there was just a little too much noise going on, and it was kind of a situation where I just needed to get it recorded. So I recorded it. I'm going to add the voiceover after the fact, and it should work out fine. But we'll kind of do a test and see how that goes. That may be the next recipe that goes up, but it's once again not going to be till September that goes up. So we'll get there when we get there. Otherwise, of course, we have our YouTube channel for this podcast. So if you are listening to the audio-only version of the Orange Box podcast, you can find the audio-only version on any major podcast platform. So that's Google Music, Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, basically any podcast platform that releases every Friday at 12 a.m. Central Time. And then the video version, which is on our YouTube channel at the Orange Box Podcast, you can that goes up at 7 a.m. Central Time on Fridays. And basically the benefits to doing the video version are, number one, you can see what we look like if you care. You may decide immediately after seeing our faces that you want to turn it off or just stop looking. But you don't just have to see our mugs. We also include clips of games we've been playing. There will be a ton of Dark Souls clips this week because I did a whole lot of Dark Souls playing. So you can watch some of the victories and defeats of the various bosses I fought throughout the week, as well as some of the Kingdom Hearts footage for the Steam Deck with both low settings for Kingdom Hearts 3 and the mixed settings with the 75% resolution. And then also, of course, anytime we talk about new games that there are trailers for and that sort of thing, or in this case, the improvements that have come with the emulation for Bloodborne, all that stuff is included in the video version. So it's a great opportunity if you want to see more and not just listen to us, then you will have that as well. And of course, all of the music that is included with the audio only version is included with the video version as well. Of course, if you have any reason that you want to contact us, whether you have questions, comments, you want to insult us, you want to berate us, you want to tell us to self-delete in Minecraft, whatever it is you have to do, you have to say, feel free to reach out to us. You can either comment on the video version of the podcast. You can send us an email at theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. You can also contact us on Twitter at theorangeboxpod. Not real active on Twitter apart from just including or reposting the video version of the podcast there every week. But of course, if you send me a message or you tweet at me, then I will be sure to respond, or we could even bring it up on the podcast. But even if you never say a thing, even if you're not listening, which obviously if you're hearing this, you're listening, even if you just have no desire to talk to us, we're just going to talk for 2 hours every week, or however long it happens to be, because this is how we catch up each week. It's a good outlet to talk about video games, and it's just good to talk to a buddy, all that stuff. So that is everything, I believe. So last chance, any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right, well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zaracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast, and until next time, find a game you are close to finishing and finish it. Orange Box Podcast.